My first guest tonight is a man with a complicated history. As Massachusetts Speaker of the House from 2004 to 2009, Sal DiMasi helped push through landmark laws like universal health care, greenhouse gas limits, and kept a ban on gay marriage off the ballot. But in 2008, he was accused of accepting $65,000 in kickbacks for steering multi-million-dollar state contracts to a Burlington-based software company, and ultimately resigned under a cloud of suspicion. 2011, he was convicted of extortion, conspiracy, and fraud, sentenced to 8 years in prison. But in 2012, DiMasi developed cancer in his tongue and lymph nodes. He was ultimately released from prison in November of 2016 after a years-long battle for compassionate release due to his age and serious condition, a case his wife Debbie made relentlessly at the State House and here on Greater Boston. Sal DiMasi joins me now for his first interview since he went to prison. Sal, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here.
It's good to see you.
How's your health?
My health is much, much better. I'm in remission. I'm lucky I had 2 cancers. I had throat cancer, prostate cancer. And thanks to my wife getting me out on time and my team like Nancy Gertner, and I'm able to get the health care I needed in Dana-Farber and Mass General, and I'm grateful for that.
How's your mental health?
It's been tough. It's been a long, tough road, and it's been difficult. I can always say that I had to dig deep into whatever substance that was made of to get through all of what I had to get through.
I want to start with your physical thing. You were under supervision of the Bureau of Prisons for 5 years. The people you mentioned, your wife, your lawyers were here, said you were intentionally denied medically necessary care. Were they right? And if they were right, why were you denied the care?
Because it's systemic with the organization. The Bureau of Prisons does not provide the health care needed, not only just for me, but for anybody.
So it wasn't just because you were who you were and they wanted something out of you, whether it was grand jury testimony or whatever it was.
There's always a little of that. You know, what's going on from what you see reading the news today is that some of that happens, but a lot of it happens because it's just systemic.
Do you ever think you were going to die in prison?
Yes.
What was that like? How'd you cope? I mean, you were, I think it's fair to say, believed by many to be the most powerful man in Massachusetts. You go to being a man with absolutely no power under the thumb of a rogue Bureau of Prisons. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the fear of dying? How do you deal with that?
Well, that's a good question. It's very difficult to go back and to try and see how I handle that, but the thing I used to tell myself is every day was just take one day at a time. Thank God that you have a good family. Thank God that you have friends that stand by you. Thank God that you have the courage to go forward every day and meet the challenges. The challenges were very, very difficult. The treatment was difficult. The hospital conditions were difficult. There was other prisoners. There's no support system. Anybody who has had cancer knows that it's difficult to go through that.
I want to go back to the day of your conviction. You didn't testify in your case. After the verdict came down, you went out to the State House, the courthouse steps, and you said this, if you just watch for a second.
They've never had enough evidence at the beginning or the end of their case with respect to a jury, a reasonable juror coming to a conclusion that there could be a guilty finding of this. I believe that they didn't prove their case. I was a legislator who did the best I could, and I made a lot of good decisions, and I helped a lot of people. I would never have any second thoughts of running for office again.
That's what you said. The U.S. Attorney, Carmen Ortiz, was here not too long ago, said Mr. DiMasi abused the power of his office, depriving the citizens of Massachusetts of his fair and honest representation. The jury's verdict today has demonstrated that. Despite having been the powerful Speaker of the House, he was still not above the law. The voters of Massachusetts put an extraordinary amount of trust in Mr. DiMasi. He betrayed that trust. Do you feel any differently today than you did when you said what you said on the State House, on the courthouse steps?
Jim, I've spent probably the last 10 years trying to put all of that in the past, and basically speaking, what I said was right. I did the best I could under the circumstances and everything that was presented to me, and I tried to comply with the law in every single way. But that's in the past, Jim, and basically the way things are happening today with respect to what it is and is not permissible under the law for an elected official, it's very difficult to try and know where that bright line is.
Do you think you broke the law?
Well, I'd rather not talk about that today. I'd rather talk about that another time, because I'm just here to tell you that how grateful I am to be here to be able to talk to you. And how grateful I am that you were able to put my wife on and Nancy Gertner so that I was able to get out on time in compassionate release.
Why don't
and
you,
a lot of the
if
things,
I may, I mean, obviously
yeah,
I can't. Why
yeah.
don't you want to answer? You're free, your probation is over.
No, I understand.
You're a free man.
I understand that, but it's more. It's a complicated issue, and the complications of my case, still have to be discussed as to what the merits were. Yeah, and I still.
Well, you seem to be saying you don't think that you committed a crime.
Well, that is in the past, and I can understand how people would view that differently than I would. So, it's a basic thing that happened to me. There's a conviction. The conviction is behind me. I made the appeals, and now I have to deal with the reality of what happened to me.
Are you angry at anybody? By
By
the way, I am somebody who supported your work, and as you know, when you were convicted,
that. Yeah.
I thought you should go to prison. Are you angry at people like me who supported the work you did, but then thought you should be deprived of your liberty because of what we believed you did?
Well, my wife keeps reminding me that of an old saying. The saying is, being angry at someone is like taking poison and hoping the other person dies. It only kills you. So I'm finished with that. I'm finished with anger. It's a negative feeling. I don't want to have any negative feelings. I feel a lot of happiness right now. I feel like I've had a second chance in life. I feel like I can still continue to do some of the good work that I did before.
I want to talk
so
about
I'm not going to be angry.
Are you a better, speakers of the House generally aren't like what you're just describing. I'm not talking about any criminal activity. I'm talking about saying I'm a happy man and I'm not going to hold a grudge against anybody. Are you in some ways healthier in your head today than you may have been in 2011?
There's a great thing about reflection and having the time to reflect on your life and who you are and what life is all about. And I had that opportunity to do that, even though through difficult circumstances. So now, Jim, when people, if you say people don't like me, or they're angry with me, or they disagree with me, what I went through, that means nothing to me. That's easy to deal with that than it is to deal with what I went through.
So when you went to the State House yesterday, there was the farewell speeches for a bunch of people, including some who served under your lead. Were you nervous about what kind of reception? You got applause. Were you nervous about what kind of reception you got?
I was nervous. And I saw so many friends and so many people that came up to me and introduced themselves, some of the new people, and talked about what good work I did when I was there. So it was gratifying, but it was also very humbling to me, Jim. I was very humbled yesterday, more than anything.
You got the longest sentence. You know it 10 times better than I of any elected official in Massachusetts history. Some people think that Judge Wolf is trying to set an example. Of course, Judge Wolf is also the man who granted you compassionate release. I asked your lawyer and your wife, Nancy Gertner and Debbie DiMasi, I don't know, a year or so ago, about whether or not they thought you got a special deal because of who you were. Very, very few people, you know this better than I, get compassionate release. Many deserve it. You weren't terminally ill. And as I say, very few got. Did you get a special deal because of the friends you had who supported your call for compassionate release?
Well, I think I got what was deserving under what the regulations and the laws were, and basically I had a good team, I had good support, I had a family and a wife who argued and fought for me. Thank God for her. She's my champion. I can't tell you how much I appreciate what she did for me, how much I love her for it. But the thing that struck me was that it shouldn't be just for me. I did what I could to help as many other people in prison as I could. If they asked me to help them with their request for compassionate release, I did that. I did that for everybody. And I was frankly disgusted by the way the Bureau of Prisons was refusing them and obfuscating the process. And, the laws are in place for them to get out, but they just don't do it. They don't want to do it. They make sure they don't do it. It's a rogue agency. I can't say enough about that.
You mentioned your wife a number of times. I don't want to speak for her, but I would say based on my conversations with her, she had two goals. One goal was to get you out of prison, which she did. The other goal was to get Massachusetts to join the vast majority of other states that had a compassionate release law. We were one of only 5, I think, that didn't. Governor Baker signed one. So what's next for you and for her. What's the advocacy front that you hope to operate on, she does? What's next for Sal DiMasi and Debbie DiMasi?
Well, to me, I believe and I hope that the fact that my case was publicized was enough to give the catalyst to the people in the legislature to vote for the medical parole and compassion release. That's what it is, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful to them. I'm sorry what happened to me, and it was difficult to go through. But if any good can come out of it, that's great. Am I dedicated right now to make sure that I can try and change prison reform, that I can try and change compassion release, health care for prisoners, criminal justice system? Yeah. I'm going to do that. I'm going to work on that. I'm not just going to, I'll speak on it anywhere I can. I can give you examples of the inhumane and cruel treatment that was in prison for lack of medical care. People dying every single day where I was in the unit. You have no idea. It was seeing people just drop off like flies. Every other day, someone in my unit would die. And they would do nothing about it, nothing.
And you think a lot of those deaths were unnecessary and could have been avoided had people gotten appropriate medical care?
Yes, it was unnecessary.
Do you worry about your legacy? I mean, as I said at the top here, by the way, when I took the position that I took, and it was not saying that he's convicted, I think he's got to go to jail. I cannot tell you how many friends in the legislature I had who wrote me vicious letters talking about the incredible things he did. I listed some of them at the beginning. Do you worry about, do you think about your legacy? You had a pretty progressive, important, high-profile record. Now you have this. Do you worry about it?
But I can, the way I looked at it is I said to people, you can try and taint the good deed doer, but you can never taint the good deed. That'll never go away. What I accomplished along with my colleagues when I was in the legislature as Speaker, that's never going to be erased, Jim. So there's going to be a legacy of that no matter what. Life is funny and it throws you a curve. But, sometimes my wife tells me, and God bless her, she says everything happens for a purpose. And if the purpose is that you can go out and help some of the people get the health care they need, because, Jim, when I was in there, you live with these people and you see them sick and dying. And before I left, and when I got compassion release, they were happy for me because they said, you have a voice. Go out there and please speak for us. And that's what I'm going to do, Jim, because basically I want to help them.
I hope you keep using it here. Sal DiMasi, it's good to see you again. It's been
Thanks,
a really
Jim.
long time.
Appreciate
Thanks so much. Former Speaker of the House, Sal DiMasi.